And hello, my fellow kids out there. This is your Richie, and welcome back once again to PokéMonth 2025. So this time I'm going to be covering what we all probably know is the weakest type in the entire game, that being the bug type. Y'all should know by now, the creepy crawlies, the route 1 bugs, the fastest ones to evolve early game and then just constantly become the worst type competitively. This does make sense though, as Pokemon itself started after Yogi's fascination with bugs, and he had insects all a while. But when we think of the bug type, we think either one of two things. It's either as good as Volcarona or pathetically Volbeat. There is no middle ground with the bug type. It's either you're good or you're not. It's simple. But I think that's by design. The bug type was meant to be simple. There is because again, there is no middle ground because there never was one. The ground is completely swept under you, and there's only top and bottom. You can only go either two directions. Both types do have advantages here and there, especially against dark, psychic, and grass types. But I think that's about it. That's the only type that they're actually super effective against. Anything else either just neutral, resists bug, or just completely stomps them out. No pun intended. But the bug type also does have access to one of the strongest boosters in the game, Quiver Dance, so they have that going for them at least. It was very hard to make a list of bug types that I genuinely liked, either because I think they're really good in battle, or I simply just enjoyed the design concept, or their move pool was good. It was very difficult, especially since, again, bug is the worst type in the entire game. So, without further ado, here are my top 10 bug types. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I am actually telling the truth when I genuinely say that this was one of the most difficult lists I ever had to make. I honestly could not pick any sort of bug type to actually think for a top 10, considering all the bug types are pretty bad or just Volcarona, but that's about it. And looking at the list, I actually kind of remembered when I think back, there was one bug type from the anime that I genuinely enjoyed, and there was kind of a funny reason for that. So this is a surprise. The last list had a Johto Pokemon at the top of the list, now this list has a Johto Pokemon at the bottom. How wacky is that? Anyways, my horrible writing aside, Heracross is by far one of my favorite Pokemon to this day. And it's not because it's one of my favorite regions, of course. Trust me, I'll talk about Johto as much as I want to at some point. but for now, I'd like to talk about only Heracross. I like it simply because it's actually a pretty big monster when in combat. Like we all mostly remember it because, well, Ash had one in the anime, and one that was completely addicted to tree sap and Bulbasaur for some reason. It's not a pushover either, and looking at its stats, 125 physical attack. Which is massive, especially for a Generation 2 Pokemon, which a lot of people like to say is the weakest generation. And I honestly have to actually kind of agree. As much as I don't want to admit it, Gen 2 was technically the weakest generation because it had the weakest Pokemon in it. And only 100 new species, and that's it. And especially for a bug type that you can actually get early game just from headbutting trees. Usually you can get headbutt as early as Elix Forest, right after the second gym, which is a bug-type gym, funny enough. Although it actually really pains me to see that Bugsy doesn't use a Heracross on his team. Like, yeah, I get it, players are just starting in Johto. They don't really want them to have, like, I don't know, a base 125 attack Pokemon on the second gym. But they gave Whitney a Miltank. Surely they can give Bugsy a Heracross. Hell, he even uses Heracross in his rematch in Heart Gold Soul Silver. Or was that Scizor? I don't know. I'm pretty sure he uses both. On the defensive side, Heracross isn't all that bad, but it's not that good either. It's decent at the very least. Its HP stat is only average, and its speed-wise, it sits at around nice even 85, which isn't blazingly fast, but it's enough to outspeed a fair number of threats with the proper support. Heracross has access to an incredible mix of moves. Of course, you have the classic stabs like Mega Horn in close combat to deal insane damage, And while he also has coverage options like Stone Edge and Earthquake and Knockoff to handle flying, fire, and psychic types. It can even run Swords Dance to boost its attack even higher, or Bulk Up to set up a more defensive position. And abilities like Guts and Moxie make it even scarier. Guts lets it turn its status condition like a burn into a power boost, while Moxie snowballs its attack after each KO. It may not be an ice type, but it can sure create a big snowball effect. And, not to mention, it even got its own Mega Evolution back in Generation 6. And let's be real, the thing really did need a Mega Evolution. This form actually boosts its already insane physical attack of 125 to 185, literally up by what I would say 60 points in attack. I mean, not for nothing, Heracross, but I think you got a lot going for you, especially with a Mega Evolution that they so desperately need to give you by the time Auras came out. And not to mention that Heracross was actually the first ever bug fighting type to ever exist, which honestly, very bold move for Game Freak. It's very weird to see the two types that flat out resist each other come together to form a monster of a Pokemon that just completely wrecks everything that it touches. But unfortunately, Heracross, like the rest of us, isn't really perfect. Even without its Mega, Heracross is 4 times weak to flying type attacks, which honestly, yeah, that kind of just comes with the package, doesn't it? Anytime you have certain type combinations, there's always the risk of running a 4 times weakness, and Heracross has that 4 times weakness. And power creep wasn't really nice to Heracross, even after it got its own Mega Evolution. And considering that flying is actually one of the most common attacking types in competitive Pokemon, yeah, you can tell that Heracross isn't really used much as, or at least it wasn't used as much as it used to be. But even so, I still love this thing, and again, my nostalgia for the anime is pretty much why I like Heracross a lot. But also the fact that, Ash had Sleep Talk on his Heracross to counter Tobias' Darkrai, which, honestly, why didn't Darkrai lose to Heracross? Like, don't get it wrong, their base stat totals are completely different. Darkrai's is a lot higher than Heracross. But even still, Heracross has the type advantage, so what gives Tobias? Was Tobias cheating this whole time? I mean, then again, he did bring 2 legendaries to a conference, so... Wait, okay, I'm getting a little off track here. To bring in the next entry... My number 9 entry is probably one of the more unexpected picks, but at the same time, it's also pretty expected, and just because it's an obvious choice doesn't mean it's a wrong one. Now, Generation 6 has given us a lot of Pokemon, and honestly, the bug types were mediocre at best, honestly. But then again, we wouldn't have a lot of different pattern variety if it wasn't for this one Pokemon. Oh look, it's the Pokemon that everyone seems to be pronouncing wrong. Now, I'm only going to be saying this once to you guys. And just to be sure that we're clear, it is Vivillon, not Vivion. I am so tired of seeing people pronounce this thing Vivion. It pisses me off to no end, and I don't know why it pisses me off so much. Anyways, pronunciation aside, Vivillon here actually has, 20 different patterns? Well, at least I'm pretty sure it's 20 different patterns, with the garden pattern here being my absolute favorite of all of them, because, my favorite color is green, my eyes are green, it only makes sense, right? But I know you're asking, what makes Vivillon so special to me? Especially the garden pattern, again, because it's all green. Well, of course it may not seem like a threat at first, but you let your guard down on this thing and it could have the potential to wreck you completely. While its stats aren't really anything major, it does seem to have high special attack. So some of you probably see where I'm going with this, right? So I'm not going to beat around the bush. Vivillon gets access to Quiver Dance, which again, I said at the beginning of the video, it's one of the best boosting moves in the entire game. Boosting your special attack, special defense, and your speed. And yes, I know that the move Victory Dance does the exact same thing, but for the physical side. but that's only exclusively to Hisuian Lilligant. It's its signature move, and I don't think any other Pokemon learns Victory Dance by level up, breed, or tutor. So yeah, Quiver Dance is probably one of the best boosting moves in the game, especially since quite a lot of Pokemon get access to this one move. Mostly bug types, but I'll get to that in a bit. Anywho, you set this thing up with Quiver Dance correctly, and it can actually be taking KOs left and right. Oh, and apparently, as of writing the script for this video, I found out that while doing research that Pokemon Legends ZA actually removed Quiver Dance from Vivillon's moveset for some reason, and I don't know why. It's just, I looked at the thing, it was there in Generation 9, it had Quiver Dance, and then I look at Legends ZA's moveset, and it doesn't have Quiver Dance. They removed it from the game. To which, honestly, I guess makes sense considering the fact that, it's a real-time battle, and you don't really have time to set up in that case, so your only strategy is to just attack. But I haven't really played ZA yet, I'm not going to spoil myself for it any further than that. But anyways, they honestly should have kept the move. And back when it did have the move, this thing was a menace. Support. Usually this thing tends to use Sleep Powder and Hurricane in order to pick up KOs. And honestly, it's pretty useful too, especially with its ability Compound Eyes, which increases the accuracy of its moves by 1.3 times. And Vivillon isn't too much of a menace nowadays. Like I said, it was a menace when it had Quiver Dance. But the thing is, the unfortunate thing, it can't even learn Baton Pass, or at least not anymore, or at least I don't think it ever could, so it can't even pass those stats on to a better teammate if it's suffering from any sort of low health problems. And also the fact that Vivillon is now in the ZU tier on Smogon's official competitive format. That tends to mean that this Pokemon has basically zero use in competitive play, especially since it doesn't get Baton Pass at all, so it can't even hand over those boosts to his team members. It also suffers from something that I am now officially dubbing Charizard Syndrome, which basically means it's 4 times weak to Rock. Trust me, a lot of Pokemon for some reason are 4 times weak to Rock. I don't know why Game Freak likes doing that. They like making a good Pokemon, it has decent stats, great move pool, but it's just weak to a tiny little pebble. Like, seriously, you throw a pebble at this thing and it'll die. But basically having that crippling 4 times Rock weakness, and we know how much of a problem it is due to Stealth Rock. But even so, I still like Vivillon a lot, and again, the garden pattern being my absolute favorite. Especially with all the multitude of designs and patterns it has aside from this one, here's to hoping that this thing gets some sort of buff in the future. Okay, let's be real with this one. Who is actually surprised by this? Like I've said once, just because it's the obvious choice doesn't mean it's the wrong one. And the other thing that I said is, yes, I like the competitively viable Moth. Okay, well actually that's not what I said, but I said earlier in this video, you can either be as bad as Volbeat, or you can be as good as Volcarona. And Volcarona here is one of the best bug types by far, aside from Scizor, which is why it makes it onto the list. Volcarona is basically the best bug type in the game, period, and there are several reasons why. While it also suffers from Charizard Syndrome, being 4 times weak to Rock, it is also one of the best Quiver Dance users of its time, being one of the only bug types in the Uber tier that, isn't Arceus holding a plate full of bugs. Volcarona here can actually pretty much set up and sweep pretty much anything, especially when it has especially when there isn't much that can resist both stabs of Bug and Fire, unless you happen to be a Water Fairy type, like Primarina or something. Even then, it has coverage moves like Trailblaze, Air Slash, and even Zen Headbutt for some reason, even though it's not really a physical attacker, it's more of a special attacker. And all this really puts the opponent on edge. That's not even to go into its dex entries either, which either it causes forest fires or how it apparently acted as a replacement for the freaking sun. How is this thing on legendary, and also how does it burn both ends of the good and bad spectrum? It also has really, really good stats, shining both as a speedy special attacker with a great amount of special defense to keep it alive, and Volcarona even got 2 paradox forms, in the form of Slitherwing and Iron Moth in Generation 9. But I'm gonna be honest with you, Slitherwing here is actually my favorite one, and I will always stand by my cute little moth guy crawling on all six legs. Or wait, is it 4 legs? I don't know. I probably should check that again. And don't get me wrong, both paradox forms are strong in their own right, but it's just something that you can't really do. You can't really recreate the awesomeness that Volcarona had going for it back in Generation 5. And even in Generations Future, it even has its own signature move in Fiery Dance, which was then given to Iron Moth in Gen 6, or Gen 9, I should say, because, well, obviously it makes sense. This is honestly one Moth Pokemon that I can totally go down with, and honestly, I have actually done a sweep with this thing before on Pokemon Showdown, and it was glorious. Honestly, I did get that off camera, so honestly, I didn't really upload it at all because I never bothered to record it. But trust me, when I say I did sweep with this thing, it was genuinely a monster. And for the longest time, I think this thing will be the best Moth Pokemon around, even in the generations to come. Even if Generation 10 doesn't include Volcarona in any way, I think that's fine, honestly, because even without it, we all know it's gonna be the best one no matter what. Even if that typing really weighs it down. So there isn't really much I can do to actually introduce this next one, but I'll tell you what. I'll give you a hint as to what it is. One hint is that, to narrow it down, it's the only Pokemon of this type combination. Yes, the first half is Bug, but the other half, I'm not going to tell you. It's the only Pokemon of this type combination and to exist to this day, and no other bug type dares to take on the other half. And that's mostly because, well, this one is probably one of the most infamous bug types in the entire dex. And it's also from Generation 3, and yeah, I'm sure you guys know where I'm going with this one, so let's just go ahead and roll the clip. The gimmick Pokemon that you all probably know, it's well known and feared throughout the community for having one of the best abilities out there. But some of you are asking, what the hell is a Shedinja? It's to explain and clear my throat a bit. It is the split evolution of Nincada, and you're probably wondering, how does Nincada evolve into this thing? Last I checked, it evolves into Ninjask at level 20. And yes, you are right. But technically, it evolves at the same time it evolves into the well-known Ninjask. So let me explain this to you. The only way you can get Shedinja in your party is you evolve Nincada into Ninjask, and you have a free space in your party. And if you do have a free space in your party, then Shedinja will just appear in a Pokeball in your 6th slot. It is the first and only Bug Ghost type that was introduced in the series. Shedinja also has the dex entries talking about the hole in its back stealing people's life force, but we as the trainer always see the back of it when it's attacking, so what, does that mean we're always putting our lives at risk or something? Anyways, it's one of those Pokemon that has unique typing all to itself. Bug, again, being Bug and Ghost, two types that never really combined ever, at least not until Generation 3. And this thing is actually not too bad when you look at its move pool. Its move pool mostly consists of things like Sword Dance, X-Scissor, and Shadow Claw, but you know, basic stabs and boosting moves. But then there we get to its ability, Wonder Guard. And to explain that ability, Wonder Guard is basically Shedinja's signature ability. No other Pokemon has this. And this ability basically allows the Pokemon to be immune to all damage except for super effective hits. So you try to hit this thing with a water move, or even God forbid a normal or fighting move. Wonder Guard basically makes it immune to that sort of damage. So nothing can basically touch this unless you're already super effective. and the crazy part about this thing is, well, it's only weak to 5 of the 18 different types. Yeah, that makes it immune to literally, if I do my math correctly, 13 types this thing is immune to because of that ability alone. I mean, yeah, sure, there are ways to get around the ability with like weather damage, or if you poison or burn it, or if it gets hit by an entry hazard like spikes or stealth rocks. And those are the only ways you can possibly delete this thing, because those are the only ways to delete it if you don't have any super effective damage. But those who come unprepared are pretty much signing their death warrant. And there was a reason why Shedinja wasn't allowed in Scarlet and Violet to begin with. Even though I have showed a video on my channel that sort of strategy doesn't exactly work. And not even in the best circumstances, because Zygarde exists for a reason. It has a signature move for this very purpose. But anyway, seriously, go and see that video if you don't know what I'm talking about. I'll link it in the description. But anyways, Terra Electric Shedinja with Air Balloon just doesn't work, is basically what I'm saying. And also, the negative is that, again, this is a gimmick Pokemon. While its stats are decent, its HP is literally only 1. It only has 1 hit point. So if you hit it, that's it, it's dead. It can't do anything. And that 1 hit point also does not double if you Dynamax. It just stays at 1. It never goes up. Because again, much like Wobbuffet, Wynot, Ditto, this is a gimmick Pokemon. It's just meant there as a gimmick and nothing else. It doesn't have anything else going for it. And its typing of Bug Ghost, again, leaves it with 5 weaknesses. Those weaknesses being Rock, Fire, Ghost, Dark, and Flying, which are very common attacking types in competitive play. My god, why does competitive play have so many common attacking types? So if you even think about entering a tournament with Shedinja, well, you're basically just entering with a waste of a team slot. And in all honesty, it's fine as long as you're having fun, but I know that there's someone out there who thinks Shedinja is their favorite, and it's me, because Shedinja is my 7th favorite bug type. But even so, with its drawbacks and weaknesses, and you know, the actual pain of keeping this thing alive, I do think it does solidify itself as a Pokemon that none of us will ever forget. So I actually completed the Dex in Pokemon Legends Arceus recently, and I was actually very shocked to find out some of the information about these Pokemon. Think about Legends Arceus for a second. Azelf is known as the dreaded being of willpower, and then you have other Pokemon like Baneri, where Professor Laventon was hypothesizing that its ears stay crunched up because its hearing is too keen. When we all know from modern Pokedex that is because it actually uses this to launch a surprise counterattack. But the information I found about one Pokemon in particular kind of surprised me, to be honest, even though it's technically not really new information. Have I made it obvious that I like Moth Pokemon yet? This guy is from Generation 4 and is the only Moth that I do not have the shiny for. I will eventually complete my shiny Moth collection one day. But aside from that, Mothim is probably one of my favorite designs in the franchise. It evolves only from male Burmy and is probably one of the most interesting moths in the series. You know, aside from the fiery moth that burns everything to cinder with its wings, and became a complete embodiment of the sun. But what does Mothim have? Well, if you take a look at its Dex entries, you actually find out that it's actually more violent and aggressive than we thought. Now, obviously this thing likes drinking nectar, and obviously it really loves honey. And it loves honey so much that it will literally steal it from Combi. Legends Arceus Dex entry states, scatters steel-colored scales as it flaps its wings. Despite being observed feeding primarily on nectar flowers, Mothim is not often seen around flower gardens. And I also learned that Mothim, and well, I guess Wormadam to an extent, are actually based off of a species of bagworms that were apparently an invasive insect to where they live, that can do irreversible damage to trees and plants. Meaning that in the Pokemon world, Mothim, Wormadam, and Burmy could very well actually be an invasive species to Sinnoh and Hisui, and we never even knew it. Mothim's stats also are kind of okay, and its move pool is actually decent, letting it get access to Quiver Dance, Air Slash, Bug Buzz, and it does have some things to cover its weaknesses, but those weaknesses are also kind of, well, pretty bad. As much like some of the Pokemon before it, it suffers from the Charizard syndrome of having a 4 times weakness to Rock. I promise this is hopefully this is the last Pokemon I talk about that is weak to Rock 4 times. But this one actually makes sense. Plus its stats again are mediocre at best, and except for its physical and special attacking stats, which are both at base 94, which are, well, decent, not that great. And I don't think I've seen anyone sweep with a Mothim. Like, tell me, when was the last time you've seen a Mothim sweep anything? Last time I saw it was honestly never. I've never seen this thing win any sort of match. But unless you were the one training it, or, you know, if it was probably an alpha Pokemon, I guess. But Mothim isn't really in ZA as far as I'm aware, so we may never know. I don't know, but I kind of like Mothim. Its design was pretty interesting when I first saw it, and I don't know, maybe it's because of the autumn-like colors and the fact that it's in the middle of November, aka PokéMonth, so maybe it's because of that I like this so much, and the fact that this thing, despite its appearance, is an aggressive honey thief that will steal again no matter what. I don't know. Maybe it's this subversion of expectation that I really like about it. And even still, Mothim is an underrated choice, and I really believe it needs more attention than it already gets. So I should probably start by saying that Pokemon Sword and Shield are my favorite Pokemon games, and with it comes my favorite generation of Pokemon. Mostly because, well, you know, it was released on my birthday, like years ago. And don't get me wrong, I am still a Johto baby, and I love Generation 2, but I was able to get Sword and Shield on day 1, and as I was playing my copy of the game, I picked a Shield version, by the way. I eventually came across an adorable little guy called Snom, and it was all well and good. I thought it was super cute, and I was hoping it'd be grow. Blah, I can't enunciate my words apparently. I was hoping that Snom would grow up to be really big and really strong, and you know what? It didn't really disappoint. Sure enough, I was rewarded with a very beautiful surprise. Oh wow, look at that. Another moth Pokemon to be put on the list. Yes, get used to this, by the way. This is just how it's going to be. And anyways, Frostmoth encapsulates everything I love about moth Pokemon entirely. It's super pretty in the moonlight specifically, and flies gracefully around. This is how you make a bug and ice type stand out by design. Its shiny form is also nice. Hey, editor, bring in the shiny form, please. Thank you. I mean, seriously, look at this. This is probably how you do with shiny people. A nice mint green for this absolutely pure white moth. And I know in game it's actually pretty hard to tell if it's shiny or not, but trust me, once you see the sparkles and see that the eyes are green instead of the usual blue, then you kind of understand it a bit better. Anyways, aside from my love for green shinies and me being weak to them for some reason, and you all also probably know that its dex entries talk about how it literally shows no mercy to those who desecrate mountains and fields, but it also likes drinking clean meltwater, so I rather enjoy this thing's company. And like most of the bugs in this list, it also gets access to Quiver Dance. It's blasé at this point, but it also comes packing with Stab, Ice, and Bug moves like Aurora Beam, Bug Buzz, and it also has a niche for being a setter of Snow and Tailwind. And it can also support its teammates with Wide Guard to protect them from spread moves or Aurora Veil to boost your defenses. But unfortunately, Aurora Veil only works in Snow, so that's why it can learn Snowscape and Hail. At least, well, Hail back in Gen 8, Snowscape back in Snowscape in Gen 9. It's really weird. And then there's also its ability, Shield Dust, which isn't too bad. It prevents the additional effects of moves. So basically, like for say, if you get hit by Fake Out, you won't really flinch because yeah, it deals damage and flinches you, but Shield Dust protects you from that, and it's a very niche thing to do. And then there's its other ability, Ice Scales, which is probably one of my favorites in the entire franchise, to where the Pokemon actually takes half damage from special moves. Like, just all special moves, not just fire or ice, just special moves. It's like Thick Fat turned to 100. But for all the beauty it has, this thing kind of has a catch. It has not one, but two 4x weaknesses. It suffers from Charizard syndrome, of course, but it also has a 4x weakness to fire. Meaning, you probably shouldn't let Wombu anywhere near this thing, otherwise it's gonna melt it into a puddle. And not to mention that its stats are, well decent at times, with its only good stats being special attack and relatively okay special defense. Other than that, it's basically a glass cannon. It can dish out some damage, but it can't exactly take it well. But still, I love Frostmoth, and also the fact that I actually got a shiny one of these back in Scarlet and Violet. I'm just really happy to see this thing exists. And once again, it's one of my favorite generations of Pokemon because it's literally made for me. I would definitely want one of these things in my house. Okay, I swear to you guys, this is the last Moth Pokemon I'm gonna talk about. I promise. Anyways, Venomoth is yet another bug type I really like, mostly due to the anime and Koga himself having one. Even though he's an Elite Four member, I'm, at least for now, not sure why he has a Venomoth at the Elite Four, but okay. When I could use in my team of nothing but it's again once I could have a team of fully shiny moths. One day there will be a game where I can get every single moth Pokemon that exists. but again, I digress. I of course did get a shiny Venomoth quite a while ago in Pokemon Scarlet. And again, all I'm missing is Mothim. But back on topic, Venomoth was the first moth Pokemon ever introduced in the series, and already there were theories about how, that it and Butterfree were actually switched between each other during development, considering that Venonat has more in common with Butterfree than, well, Venomoth. And it's also part of the problem where it's one of the many poison types in the Kanto region, considering that poison is its most abundant type. Sure, let's just add a venomous moth. Surely that won't be too much. The design concept made sense for me at least, considering that some moths, or at least most species of moths, have poisonous scales on them. It gets access to some decent moves, and even has a nice hidden ability in Wonder Skin, which makes it so that status moves are more likely to miss. And Venomoth is highly underrated. That is, if you don't count the Twitch Plays Pokemon stream with ATV, All-Terrain Venomoth. And of course, being from Generation 1, you'd expect Venomoth to get some sort of buff, right? Like, aside from new moves to play with, or maybe even a stat boost, or... Nope, this thing gets absolutely nothing. Game Freak has been ignoring this thing for years, only giving it a few new moves to play with, and that's it. No Mega Form, no Regional variants, no Gigantamax form, no Paradox variant, nothing. It has literally been in the same since its debut generation. And its pre-evolution Venonat have been in literally every single generation. Every generation. I mean, sure, they weren't really available in Sword and Shield, but who cares? They were in Let's Go. Let's Go is still a Generation 8 game. And then, so basically, these guys, it and its pre-evolution have been in every single generation and have gotten absolutely nothing. Literally nothing. Sure, they weren't in Sword and Shield, but they were still there. You could still, but they were still there in Generation 8. You could still get them in a Generation 8 game, being Let's Go. Like, come on, guys. Just give Venomoth some sort of love. And again, no, I'm not counting Twitch Plays Pokemon, because that's a fan thing, not an official thing. But, you know, aside from it not getting a single thing since its debut generation, I still genuinely like Venomoth. It was basically the feeling of the odd child that never got any love, that should have gotten love in the first place, and is actually decently good because of its hidden ability. But, you know, I really wish Venomoth had some sort of thing going for it, aside from its stats and its uniqueness, but nope, it's just a nerve poison bug type that nobody cares about. So Generation 7 gave us a lot of decent bug types, namely Araquanid for its really good typing of Bug Water and its ability Water Bubble. But I was actually hyped for a different water bug type. One that was introduced in the same generation, mind you. Now, let's be real here. Golisopod is an amazing Pokemon, capable of being a huge offensive threat. Having really solid physical stats and special defense, it is a great move pool to boot. It even had a signature move, First Impression, a priority bug-type move that hits really hard, and I mean really hard, which was later then given to other Pokemon like Fallings. Golisopod is also the ace of the team leader of Team Skull, Guzma's team. And also only has a base 40 speed, but it was sort of meant to tank hits and dish out as much punishment as it could before it has to run away. And by that I mean I'm talking about its ability Emergency Exit, which basically is just just acts the exact same way as its pre-evolution Wimpod's ability Wimp Out, which forcibly switches a Pokemon out if they're below a certain health threshold. And this can be activated again and again in a single battle, so long as they're healed. But this also leads into some really good switch out strategies if you are able to use it correctly. And of course, Golisopod has access to really good moves like its aforementioned former signature move, First Impression. It also has strong Water Stab and Liquidation, coverage moves like Sucker Punch, Rock Slide, and Shadow Claw, and even has some very interesting Pokédex entries. My favorite Pokédex entry has to be its Pokemon Shield Dex entry, which reads, "They live in sunken ships or in holes in the seabed. When Golisopod and Grapplocks battle, the loser becomes the winner's meal." That is really disturbing, but also really freaking cool. It also solidifies this Pokemon's really dark side, and, you know, also solidifies that nature in the Pokemon world also has a dark side. But you know, aside from Golisopod being tough, it also has a few downsides. Firstly, it's only physically bulky, and while its special defense is a respectable 90, Golisopod only has a base health of 75, and has really low special attack, which of course it wasn't using that stat anyways, and has really low speed, which actually genuinely makes it slower than Squirtle, who has a base speed stat of 43. A Squirtle can outspeed a Golisopod. I don't know what kind of world we're living in. And not to mention the other fellow bug water type Araquanid has, you know, slightly better ability and has the exact same setup, but just better, because Water Bubble is just a better ability than Emergency Exit, which, yeah, you could use it to strategically switch out, because Emergency Exit is more like a tactical retreat rather than just wimping out like Wimpod does. But the thing that makes it different is that Water Bubble is just a better ability because it's 3 abilities wrapped up into one, and also the fact that you know, Golisopod has the same weaknesses as Araquanid, but he suffers from it much worse than Araquanid does. And you know, but while Bug Water does give it only 3 weaknesses and 5 resistances, its own ability can actually be taken advantage of, which means the opponent can forcefully switch you out and put you in an unfavorable position that you really don't want to be in. Like that, this is pretty much highlighted in that one clip in the anime where Guzma's Galactopod was about to get hit by Fire Blast, but then Emergency Eggs activates and forcibly switches out and puts Scizor in its place instead. Because, you know, both trainers were allowed to use only 2 Pokemon during that battle. But, however, even though Galactopod has all these weaknesses, I do still like it a lot, and it's the way it's just, I think I just love its design. Its design is just really good. I love it, and you know, I always kind of was a nerd for samurai culture, and I really like it. This is really cool, especially since one of its foreign names is literally samurai. Like, no kidding, it's just straight up known as samurai over in another country. I forget which language it was, but you know, I just like this thing. It's really good. You know, the Hisui region really gave us a lot of things. It gave us more lore, regional variants for Pokemon, and new life and evolutions for older Pokemon, and an open world Pokemon game for the first time. Though I think the game's biggest thing is its first impressions. When you're first thrown in Hisui, you're told by Arceus to collect every single Pokemon in the Hisui region so that people and Pokemon can start coexisting. At least that's the mission I believe it gives you. And honestly, for the first boss, they honestly really nailed it when it comes to just first impressions, first boss, and it's a giant freaking bug with axe for hands. Now, Kleavor here is one of my absolute favorite bug Pokemon. Kleavor is a branch evolution for Scyther if you evolve it in Hisui using a Black Augurite on it. And this makes sense considering that Black Augurite does not exist in modern Pokemon games, so you gotta send it 150 years in the past in order to actually get one. And it, alongside Scyther and Scizor, are actually somewhat based off the old game Rock, Paper, Scissors, which of course we have Scyther as the paper, Scizor as scissors, and Kleavor here being the rock, which actually makes sense because it is a bug rock type. And while that typing isn't really unique, but it does have a slightly unique stats, aside from, you know, having the same base stat total as its entire family, Scizor and Scyther. Yeah, seriously, look it up, they all have the exact same base stat total at 500. Kleavor here actually takes it a bit differently. Instead, it decides to bolster its physical attack and speed, while losing special points in special attack and special defense, 2 stats that it wasn't really using anyways. And it also gets a wide range access to different moves like Sword Stance, X Scissor, Air Slash, and its signature move, Stone Axe, a move that deals damage, but also sets up Stealth Rock in the process, meaning that this thing could actually be pretty viable if Stone Axe could be used more often. And of course, it does have really good abilities like Sheer Force, which is an ability that boosts the power of moves, but also eliminates their secondary effects. But it only boosts the power of moves if they have secondary effects. And then its actually good ability, its hidden ability, Sharpness, which increases the power of slicing moves by 50%. Now, how about you guys do some quick math for me real quick, right? Its signature move Stone Axe has the base power of 65 with 90% accuracy, right? So if you think about it, it gets a stat. Since it's a bug rock type, it gets a stab bonus for that move, which, by the way, stab increases your boost by 50%, meaning that this thing would have a base power of equivalent to 95. However, if you factor in its ability Sharpness, and if I did my math correctly, that means it gets basically 2 50% increases, one from stab and one from Sharpness, meaning that Stone Axe's actual base power in this case wouldn't be 65, it would be 130. For context, that is the same base power as most legendary and mythical Pokemon signature moves. Like, for example, I don't know, Magearna's Fleor Cannon, and this move has no drawbacks whatsoever. So a 130 base power move from a stab rock type, getting stab being a rock type move and having, you know, again, the stab from being a bug and rock type, that just, it just rivals legendaries. Well, or at least it would. That would be if it wasn't for Kleavor being super slow. Most good trainers could actually outspeed and OHKO Kleavor very easily, and its bug rock typing doesn't really help it. Allow me to quote something from, I don't know, Smogon.com, for example, the official competitive site for Pokemon. Defensive Pokemon like Hippowdon, Chestnut, and Amoonguss can shrug off hits from a non-Swords Dance Kleavor set and threaten back with stab moves like Earthquake from Hippowdon, Body Press from Chestnut, and Foul Play from Amoonguss. Kleavor is also checked by Steel types such as Registeel and Histirian Goodra if it is not using close combat, or is locked in Stone Axe. But Bisharp can also set up on a non-close combat Kleavor and threaten to sweep them. Bisharp in particular is very threatening against hyper-offense teams, and as it is a great matchup against the Archetype. Kleavor, so basically what it's saying is that Kleavor doesn't really have many options against these sorts of threats, and it doesn't learn that many coverage moves, unfortunately. And it basically just has its own crutch as just having the stab from Bug and Rock type, and that, you know, theoretically 130 base power Stone Axe. But even so, I still love Kleavor. It's an amazing addition to the series, and I really hope that it gets some sort of competitive use in the future. Now, we're finally here at number 1. My God, this has been a long time. I've been working on this video for like 5 to 6 days. I don't know if I can actually work on another one this month, but I've been really excited to release this, and we're finally at number 1 on my top 10 bug type list. I don't know, maybe I'll make the countdowns a yearly thing when it comes to PokéMonth. But aside from that, anyways, as I was saying, I tend to like the newer generations as Pokemon gets released. It always gives us new species and breathes life into even the older Pokemon that generally deserve it. You know, aside from Charizard and Pikachu, they've gotten enough slices of pie as is. Generation 3 gave us abilities, Generation 4 gave us the physical special split, Gen 5 gave us moving sprites and hidden abilities, Gen 6 jumped us to 3D and gave us Mega Evolution, Generation 7 gave us a new move to play with in the form of Z moves, and some of the highest shiny rates in the entire game, the entire series, mind you. Generation 8 gave us Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing, Gen 9 here gave us Terrestrialization, and also makes us question what the heck defines a type. But each one comes out with new bug types as well, and I'm always interested in to see how they play to the early and late game bugs in the series. Later bug types tend to be stronger than early ones, so my favorite bug type of all time, well, it was really hard to choose for me. I really did like Spidops for a bit, considering it's a very decent design, and I thought it'd be unexpectedly good and competitive, but nope, it's actually very weak and not that good. Tarantula, my guy, you could have evolved into something better. However, there was one bug type that I was really keen on, and well, I would say it's Slitherwing, but I don't know. I thought that'd be too much of a cop-out if I made number 1 another moth Pokemon, so instead, I decided to turn my attention towards a very underrated choice for a bug-type Pokemon. And that Pokemon is Rabsca. Now, I know Rabsca is kind of a weird choice, and some of you are probably asking, why Rabsca? Of all the Pokemon you could have chosen, why like it? Well, if you just sit down and not be rude, I'll tell you. I like it solely for just its design. It is a bug psychic type that evolves from Raylord, to which it and Rabsca share similar name things. Their names are both either corruptions or just a word backwards. Rabsca's name is actually a corruption of the word Scarab, which hilariously this Pokemon is also based on. And aside from having 2 very contradictory dex entries on which one is the main body, is it the bug, or is the main body the baby that's supposedly being raised by Rabsca inside, and the bug is just dead? It's very confusing, I don't know. But I also like And scarabs also happen to be my favorite bugs of all time. Don't get me wrong, I love myself a good scorpion, but, you know, scarabs just look cooler in my opinion. And also the fact that scarabs have a lot of ancient connections to Egypt of all places, and I always really liked looking at ancient Egyptian tombs, and Rabsca embodies this sort of thing. You know, the mysticism of what the heck Rabsca is supposed to be. And when it comes to stats, it has really horrible physical attack and speed, but you know, it wasn't really using those stats anyways, because this thing happens to be a pretty good setter for Trick Room. Or at least it's really good to use in Trick Room. It also gets really good high special attack and special defense, and gets access to Power Gem moves like Power Gem, Thief, and a new move called Psychic Noise, which prevents the target from healing for 2 turns. And while this thing is in the ZU tier, just like Vivillon, I think Rabsca has quite a bit of potential. Its typing and stats are something to be a little bit to be desired, but it's also one of the few Pokemon that learns the new move, Revival Blessing, which revives one of your fainted allies. Its ability Telepathy also allows the Pokemon to avoid damage in double battles from attacks made by its allies. This makes it more geared towards double battlers, which honestly I'm more of a double battler than a single battler. And I really want to use Rabsca in an actual competitive match at some point. But you know, its stats just kind of make it not that great. But it can be used in some way. Like, I'm pretty sure somewhere out there Rabsca is someone's favorite. Aside from mine, of course, when it comes to bug types. And I really want to see this thing get some sort of upgrade in the future. Maybe a new evolution or a mega evolution like Excalibur got recently. And I don't know. I really like this thing, and I really wish that Game Freak would give more love to the bug type as a whole. But aside from that, we are finally done. That's right, we're finally done with the bug type list. My god, this has been literally like 6 days in the frickin' making. I'm so tired. But anyways, tune in next time when we talk about the next type on the list, and I got quite a few surprises left over. So I'll see all you guys around, and thank you so much for watching.